My wife never knew I spent 15 years in black badge intelligence and currently a CIA field planner. I heard her tell her lawyer on speakerphone he signs tomorrow. After that, move him to memory care and sell the house. She wasn't working alone, so I had already prepared everything to take out 10 of them. I always thought, if the end ever came for me, it would be in a back alley in Minsk or on a dead frequency out of Kandahar. But not like this, not in my own home. In a beige cul-de-sac with a garden gnome and a mailbox shaped like a fish, certainly not with my wife whispering my death sentence over speakerphone while she thought I was asleep upstairs. Once he signs tomorrow, move him to memory care and list the house by Friday, she said. Calm, efficient, like she was ordering flowers. The click of the call ending echoed through the vents, silence followed. No laughter, no guilt, no hesitation, just the dull rhythm of her footsteps as she walked back down the hall, probably toward the guest room. We hadn't shared a bed in 4 months. She said I snored too much, but I knew better. My name is Thomas Rourke. I'm 71 years old, and contrary to what my wife tells her friends at brunch, or what my so-called neurologist writes in his forged charts, I'm not losing my mind. I spent 15 years in the Black Badge Intelligence Group, back when we didn't have names on files, just call signs and scars. These days, I work as a field planner for the CIA. Not officially, of course. They keep me in the dark until they need a ghost to wake up and clean something ugly. They thought I was retired. They were wrong. My hand trembled, not from age, but fury, as I reached behind the radiator in my home office and pulled out the burner phone, still wrapped in foil, battery separate. I popped it together, flipped it on, and hit *19. A red LED blinked twice. Channel dead. Still safe. I sat back in the chair, listening to the fan hum in the ceiling, listening to the blood in my ears. I opened the drawer under the desk and clicked a hidden switch. The old laptop I used for crossword puzzles flipped open, except it wasn't a laptop. It was surveillance control. Audio, video, motion sensors, thermal, all feeding from the hardwired lines I'd installed 2 years ago, under the pretense of upgrading our security system. I selected the archive tab. There they were, faces I once called friends. Neighbors, advisors, doctors. 10 in total, some blurry in their subtlety, others bold enough to be caught laughing in my kitchen with her while I was supposedly napping upstairs. A neurologist who never once showed me my test results. A financial advisor who had recently updated the will, without my actual signature, even the contractor who fixed the HVAC last winter. I zoomed in on his belt. Not a standard tool pouch, RF scanner. He was looking for bugs. He didn't find mine. The bile climbed up the back of my throat as the pattern clicked fully into place. I'd dismissed the details. Memory tests slipped into dinner conversations. The way she triple-checked if I'd taken my meds. Locking away documents I didn't even remember writing. I'd told myself she was scared for me. That maybe I really was slipping. But now, there was no more room for doubt. This was an op. Surgical. Designed to dismantle my identity and remove me from the chessboard without drawing attention. She had no idea who I was. Who I am. My hands moved before my mind fully caught up. The phone buzzed twice. Confirmation the packet I'd scheduled 3 months ago in case of compromise was still primed for delivery, encrypted, time-locked. It would be released in 72 hours if I didn't deactivate it. Inside, names. Maps, financial trails, call logs. A whole iceberg of secrets with just the tip visible. I stared at the footage of her, my wife of 28 years. Leaning against the counter, sipping chamomile tea like she hadn't just plotted my institutionalization. She looked tired. Older, but still beautiful in that sad, quiet way that once made me drop my guard and let her into a life I had no business sharing. And now she was going to sell my house. Put me in a facility. Drug me. Cage me. There was a part of me, God help me, that still wanted to believe she was being manipulated, that she didn't know the full extent, but the tape said otherwise. She hadn't stumbled into this. She'd been driving it. I walked into the bathroom and flipped the mirror open. Looked at my face. Gray, lined. Eyes a little duller than they used to be, but not empty. Not yet. I'd faked dementia well enough to fool everyone, and in doing so, I learned something important. People don't look twice at an old man who forgets his keys. They pity him, underestimate him, trust him with secrets because he can't remember them anyway. They should have left me alone. I closed the mirror and turned off the light. I had 16 hours until the signing. That was enough time. Just enough time to remind them who the hell they were dealing with. The quiet hum of the tires on gravel was the only sound as I pulled off the main road, weaving through a thicket of pines until the cabin came into view. No neighbors, no cell signal, no digital footprint. I'd bought this place in cash 23 years ago, listed it under a dead woman's name, and let it rot on paper ever since. No one in my current life knew it existed. I parked behind the cabin and killed the lights. The air smelled like moss and wet leaves. Inside, everything was as I'd left it. Dust, stillness, the faint scent of gun oil and old memories. I flipped the switch behind the stove. A hatch creaked open in the pantry floor. I climbed down. The basement was bare bones but wired with hard lines. No wireless. Nothing traceable. In the back corner sat my field console, steel gray, military issue. I powered it up, wiped my prints off the keyboard without even thinking. Muscle memory. The screen blinked to life. 10 folders, color-coded. 10 people, each with their own file, photo, and operational summary. I started with the obvious ones. Susan Maddox, age 47, estate attorney. Handled the new power of attorney docs. 2 wire transfers from a shell company out of the Caymans hit her account in the last 4 months. One before my first cognitive assessment. The other just after the diagnosis. She was bought early. She'll flip when threatened. She's terrified of consequences. A runner, Dr. Alan Werner, 58th neurologist. Clean on paper, but the scans he showed me were dated. Headers wrong. File stamps off. Amateur mistake. Or arrogance. Probably thought I'd never notice. But the man had done black site psych work back in '98. I found the redacted dossier buried under a fake medical trial in Ukraine. He's not just complicit. He's dangerous. A fighter. Mark Tilden, 34th realtor. Fast talker. Popped up just 6 weeks ago. Already had paperwork drafted to list the house pending legal clearance. I'd seen his type before. Asset turnover. Intelligence adjacent. He's not here to sell a house. He's here to make sure no trace of me is left behind. He's ex-SIGINT. Speaks in exact time intervals, not minutes. Doesn't use contractions. He's a pro. And then there was the wild card. Nancy Rourke, my wife. 28 years. Her file was thin. Too thin, because I never built one. I trusted her. Goddamn idiot. I stared at the wedding photo I'd scanned years ago. Her eyes back then. Bright, kind. Real? Not like the flat rehearsed tone I heard last night. When did she turn? Was it all fake? Or just the end? I had no answers. Just theories. I shoved the emotion down, where it couldn't interfere. The other 6 were smaller players. 2 nurses on retainer. A banker. A therapeutic consultant, which I'd learned was code for a handler, who specializes in psychological redirection. And 2 unknowns. One in logistics, the other IT. No names. Just faces. Surveillance caught them at the mailbox across the street 4 times in the last month. Each time between 2:10 and 2:15 a.m. Professionals, likely foreign adjacent. I tagged the IT man for later. He had the build and posture of a comms guy. Could be my way in. Back upstairs, I opened the closet by the water heater and pulled out a toolkit. Inside, nothing that would draw attention during a police sweep. But to trained eyes, a toolkit of soft kill methods, pressure-modified insulin pens, compressed gas vials, old friend stuff. I took inventory. Reassembled the flash transceiver. Then I got to work. In the morning. I'd need to be confused. Slow. The man they thought they were breaking. But tonight I was rewiring the cameras in the house, blinding their feed while feeding them a loop from last week. I installed a backup audio feed in the fireplace. Covert channels were open. Messages drafted. No electronic pings. All physical dead drops. The old me, codename Javelin, was waking up, but as I sealed the floor hatch again, my hand lingered on the doorknob. I let myself remember something I hadn't in a long time. Nancy's laugh. From our wedding night. We were on the balcony at the old Ocean View Inn, barefoot, half drunk on champagne. She'd leaned into me and whispered, "Promise me, if you ever disappear, you'll leave a note." I had. She just stopped reading them. I drove back before sunrise, let myself settle into the role. Shuffled feet. Long blinks, mumbling about forgetting the garage code. She played her part too. Wrapping a blanket around my shoulders like I was a child. I didn't flinch. That's what she wanted. "Do you remember we're meeting Dr. Werner this afternoon?" she asked sweetly. I nodded. "Right. The one with the funny bow tie?" She smiled. "That's right. Perfect." I'd already messaged his office through a secure burner pretending to be his assistant, requesting we meet in a public place due to a new outburst pattern. Starbucks. 3:30 p.m. I'd come in confused. Old. Harmless. Let him feel safe. Then I'd find out who gave him the green light to erase me. Dr. Keller looked like a man who'd made peace with easy sins. Polished glasses. Pressed khakis. The kind of white coat smile that slips past most people's guard without ever being invited in. He sat with his back to the window, fingers wrapped neatly around a paper cup that hadn't been sipped. I watched him for 2 minutes from across the street, then crossed. "Dr. Keller," I said, My voice fogged, brittle. I hope I'm not late. He rose quickly, smile engaged. No, Mr. Rourke, you're right on time. I let him help me into the seat like a frail old man. My hands trembled, just enough to be convincing. He sat again, too confident. He had no idea. You said you were having some lucid moments, he asked. That's what she told me. I mumbled, but I remember more than she thinks. Keller nodded with a false gentleness. That's completely normal. Cognitive fluctuation is common in early-stage patients. Right, I said, keeping my tone flat. But I'm not early stage. I'm not any stage. That earned a pause, barely noticeable, but his nostrils flared. His fingers curled a fraction tighter around the cup. Mr. Rourke, I ran your reports through a secondary analysis. I cut in. 2 weeks ago, you duplicated image data from another patient's scan. Different timestamps, identical voxel patterns. Sloppy. His lips parted, then closed. He scanned the coffee shop instinctively, like a man checking for exits. Excuse me, you've done this before, I said, leaning forward now. Used your credentials to create false neurological evaluations. I counted 4 over the past 18 months, but those were smaller fish, veterans with no families. I'm different. You didn't ask why, did you? He swallowed. I don't know what you think. You're being paid by a dead channel out of Cyprus. Shell Corp registered in Valletta. You knew the risk. Which means you were scared of whoever was behind it. That tells me something important. He stood. Tried to brush it off. This is inappropriate. If you're confused or paranoid, I suggest we sit down. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Just let the mask slip. For half a second I let him see what I used to be. He sat. I reached into my coat slowly and set a folded photo on the table. It was a satellite printout, a ranch-style home outside San Diego. His brother's house. I watched the blood drain from his face. I'm not here to kill you, Keller. If I wanted that, I'd have never called you. He licked his lips. Then what do you want? Answers. He hesitated, glanced at his phone, then back to me. It's called Blue Garden, he said finally. A subroutine program run through a private contractor network. Medical, legal, financial. Designed to neutralize liabilities with social-friendly methods. That's what they call it. Liabilities, I echoed. People like you. Retired assets. Loose ends. Untraceable. But someone knew who you were. Someone flagged you. Who? He shook his head. All I saw was the funding chain. Not names. What do you know about the others involved in my case? He exhaled. 2 of them weren't in the original contract. They inserted themselves. Old intel guys. Private side now. One's called Baron. The other goes by Duke. They're not amateurs. I didn't want to know more. I leaned back, stared at him. So why tell me now? Because they'll kill me when this goes sideways. And I know it's going sideways. You're right about that. I let the silence sit. Let it rot between us. Then I stood, slid the photo back into my coat. I'll give you a piece of advice, I said. You can't undo what you did, but you can survive it. Get off the grid. Today, if you stay in this game another hour, you won't get another warning. He nodded slowly, sweat on his upper lip. Understood. As I walked away, I pulled out the second burner and dialed. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. A female voice answered. Calm. Measured. He's not confused anymore, I said. Click. I dropped the phone into a storm drain 2 blocks down. Later, in the park, I sat on a bench and let the wind chill my bones. People passed with strollers and headphones and coffee cups. None of them knew a thing. But the world had shifted. I wasn't just fighting shadows anymore. Blue Garden existed. And someone had classified me as a ghost that needed to be erased. Still, one thing gnawed at the edge of my skull. That last scan Keller had faked. There were elements of it I hadn't noticed until last week. The flickers. The misfires. The brief confusion I had felt. Were they all planted? Or was some of it real? I pulled out a mint tin from my pocket. Inside, a thumb drive with everything Keller just gave me. I stared at it like it might bite. Then my phone buzzed. Nancy, I love you. Don't forget to sign tomorrow. 3 hearts, like everything was fine. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was clarity. And they weren't ready for what came next. The smell of eggs and toast filled the kitchen. She'd never cooked breakfast for me on a weekday before. Not once in 28 years. That's how I knew she'd rehearsed this morning. Everything was neat. Coffee hot. Pills lined up by the glass. A pen already waiting beside the folder. Big day, Nancy said with a forced smile. We'll just sign the last document, and everything will be easier. I shuffled in like a man 10 years older than I was. Slower. Dull-eyed. The kind of man she believed me to be now. The one she had built, pill by pill, Test by test. I sat across from her at the kitchen island. The folder was thick. Financial documents. Power of attorney. Medical consent. She slid the pen across the granite. "Just sign here, Tom," she said, voice wrapped in sugar. I picked up the pen, turning it slowly in my fingers. "Funny thing," I said. "My signature used to have a little flourish. Left-handed quirk. You remember that?" She blinked. "Of course. This isn't my signature anymore," I said, placing the pen gently on top of the folder. "This one's forged." Nancy didn't speak. Her face drained of color. I pressed my foot against the panel beneath the stool. Click. Dead man switch 1. Activated. 15 seconds later, the overhead lights flickered. Just enough interference to spike the jammers. And the burner in my back pocket sent a burst packet to 4 off-grid servers. Time-locked dead drops were awake. "You're not supposed to," she started. "No," I said, standing slowly. "I wasn't, but here we are." She backed up toward the sink. I watched her eyes. Calculating. Scanning. Not pleading. Not scared. "You're not thinking clearly, Tom." I took 2 steps closer. "Let's try the truth now. When did you flip? Before the first doctor? After the pills? Or was it the moment someone offered you enough money to start picturing yourself free of me? I didn't want to hurt you." She said, voice brittle. "You were slipping. You were." I didn't know who to call. "Not the CIA," I said. "Not my handler. Not even our son." She winced. "That landed. Good. They told me you were a liability," she whispered. "That you had enemies. That if you lost control, we'd both be targets. I thought I was protecting you." "No," I said. "You thought you were escaping me." Silence stretched between us. The woman I married was somewhere in there beneath the manipulation. I saw it flicker behind her eyes, but only for a moment. Then, I heard it. A creak upstairs. Wrong tempo. Wrong pressure. Too heavy for old wood to make on its own. I turned my head slowly. Then moved. "Get down," I snapped, grabbing her shoulder and yanking her to the floor. The window shattered an instant later. A shape moved through the hallway, like smoke. Quick. Methodical. Baron, one of the 2 Kellers mentioned. Bigger than me. Younger. Probably packing a suppressed piece and a syringe backup. I hit the floor behind the island, just as a round punched through the kitchen wall. Nancy screamed. I crawled fast and low toward the laundry room. I'd stashed a weapon there 3 nights ago. Just in case. Baron came through the hall door like a wrecking ball. I grabbed the crowbar from behind the dryer and swung hard. Caught him in the knee. He went down cursing, but not out. He lunged, and we crashed into the pantry shelves. Fists, knees, elbows. Dirty fighting. No rhythm. No finesse. He gouged for my eye. I bit his wrist. Blood hit the floor. He was stronger. I was meaner. I jammed the crowbar up into his chin, knocking his head back. He rolled, grabbed the pistol, fired wide. The round hit the stovetop. Gas hissed. We froze. "Tom," Nancy called. "Out," I yelled. Baron smiled. "You're already dead, old man." "Maybe," I said, "but you're going with me." I struck the gas valve open with the crowbar, then grabbed his belt and threw us both against the oven. The spark ignited instantly. Flash heat. Flame. I rolled through it, shoulder screaming, arm blistering. Baron didn't get up. The fire alarm shrieked as I limped outside, smoke chasing me down the porch steps. Nancy was on the lawn, crying now. Real or fake, I couldn't tell. "You never really knew me," I said. "Tom, please." I didn't wait. I got in the car, engine still running, and drove. Downtown was chaos. Sirens in the distance. I pulled into a hotel garage 5 blocks from the embassy district. Neutral ground. Walked straight to the elevator. Bypassed check-in. My contact had left the package in 14B, as arranged. Inside the room, clean clothes, a burner laptop, adrenaline injector, and a sealed case file. I opened the laptop. Typed in the kill phrase. The data dump uploaded. 5 years of surveillance. Forged medical records. Asset elimination trails. A full map of Blue Garden's domestic branch. Final message. To Langley. "You've got a leak, and I'm cleaning it." I walked up to the rooftop, just as dawn cracked the skyline. The burns throbbed. My lungs felt tight. I didn't know how long I had left, but I knew one thing. This war wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The rooftop was quiet. Still, the kind of stillness you only get just before something ends. I stood by the ledge. The wind slicing across my face. Jacket flapping open over the shoulder. I hadn't bothered to bandage properly. Below, the city crawled by unaware. Taxis, sirens, tourists snapping photos. No one looking up. No one seeing me. I checked my watch. 3 minutes. Penthouse suite, 41. The final one. The head of the snake. My old handler, Richard Kane. Langley called him Shepherd. I'd called him mentor once. He was the one who'd recruited me, trained me, lied to me. When the world burned, Kane always walked away clean. Until Blue Garden. Until now. He'd gone freelance years ago. Built a quiet empire out of shadows. Selling programs like Blue Garden to paranoid governments and corporations. They didn't want assassins anymore. They wanted plausible deniability. They wanted erasure. I was supposed to be his last erasure. The elevator dinged. I turned, cracked my knuckles, and walked in. Penthouse 41 was elegant, sterile. Cold leather, brushed chrome. It smelled like expensive air filters and false peace. Kane was already pouring scotch. "You're late," he said without turning around. "I had to dig someone out of a fire first," I said. "He had your eyes." He chuckled, slowly facing me. Time hadn't done him any favors. Hair gone, skin pale, but the same wolf eyes. I warned them not to use Baron. Too loud. Too fast. "You trained him," I said. "Like you trained me." He shrugged. "Everyone retires eventually, Tom. But not everyone understands how." I walked closer, no weapon in hand. I wanted him to see me clearly. "You started this," I said. "Blue Garden. The fake diagnoses, the erasures. I perfected it," he corrected. "I gave the world a solution. Clean exits, quiet endings. You know how messy you people get when the lights start flickering." "I'm still standing," I said. "Barely." He lifted his glass. "You've lost everything, Tom. Your house, your wife, your name. Why not just let go?" I stared at him. "Because I remember everything. Every mission. Every body I dropped. And you were behind most of them. You were never cleaning messes. You were creating them." He raised his glass in a mock salute. "History forgets men like me. That's the point." "I won't." I stepped closer. Too close for him to grab the pistol. He thought I hadn't seen beneath the glass table. "Are you here to kill me, Tom?" he asked, almost curious. "No," I said. "I'm here to end it." He didn't move. Maybe he knew he couldn't win. Maybe he wanted it. I reached inside my coat and pressed the small transmitter to my temple. The signal fed into the suite's wireless system. 3 files launched. Real-time leaks. Names, assets, accounts. Blue Garden was dead before he hit the ground. Kane's smile faltered. "You son of a bitch. You built this house of cards," I said. "I just pulled the table out." He lunged for the gun. I moved faster. The shot was clean. Center mass. 1 round. He dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. No dramatic gasps. Just the sound of breath leaving a man who thought he was untouchable. "I didn't enjoy this," I said, stepping over him. "But I'm still the one who has to do it." He slumped sideways, the scotch spilling onto the carpet. I didn't go home after that. There was no home. Instead, I headed to the airstrip just outside town. An abandoned cargo runway I used back in '97 for a Venezuelan extraction. Still operable. Still unlisted. The pilot didn't ask questions. I paid in crypto. New name. New face. But before I boarded, I opened my final account and sent the last command. Nancy's assets. Gone. Every account drained. Every credit line shredded.